first off, let me thank you guys all for coming out on this hot day, not only to get us started off right, but to plant the trees. We're really trying something different, and I've said a lot of times that campaigning is like being pregnant. Everybody wants to give you advice whether you want it or not. So there's a lot of ideas about how to run a campaign. And none of them are necessarily the way we're doing it. But one of the things that's really important to me in doing this is making sure that we include everyone. And that means people who might have been shut out by the process, by life, by what Democrats and Republicans like to call dinner table issues, kitchen sink issues, pocketbook issues, those things that are not political issues, they're day-to-day life issues for us. So Saturdays are family days for those of us who work. We want to get out with our families. For my family, for a long time, Saturdays have been get a new national park under our belt, go out and volunteer, or run a 5K for a good cause in the mornings. So giving up our Saturdays is something we didn't want to do, and we understood that half of our team wouldn't want to either. So we will have traditional come to a tap room and try a couple different beers, but we want to have plenty of activities that those of us that might have been shut out from the process before can come out and enjoy. And we also want to do as much good as we can along the way. We don't want the campaign to be just about winning so that we can do good. We want the campaign to be about doing good so that we can win. And then do a whole bunch more good legislatively. So let's talk about legislatively. Today, I think even the neat and orderly German thought I was insane because I was ironing pants. And earlier this week, I got a phone call from a gentleman who works for Vets Vote, and he was like, "You're ironing while I'm talking to you? Who irons?" I iron. My boots are shined. And yes, I'm dirty now because I also get dirty. And that's a lot about who I am. When we talk about trees, we talk about roots, making sure our roots are deep. I know my roots, and my roots are important, and my roots are why I'm doing this. My roots are in the details. I am an airman, not a soldier, coasting marine, or seaman, although I love all of them. They all have their own place. Airmen are detail-oriented. We're technicians. My first day on the job at 20 years old, I was handed a $1 billion gun and told it was mine. And if there was anything wrong with it, people could get hurt, and it would be my fault, plus the Air Force would charge me out of my paychecks, which was, well, I did not make $1 billion in the 11 years I was in, so they'd still be taking it out of the paycheck I don't receive anymore. And that's what we're trained to do. And those are my roots. I care very deeply about the little things. Getting out here today, the directional issue was killing me because it was a detail that wasn't working out. And I apologize so much to all of you that got lost this morning and had to drive around all of Pocahontas State Park, but I hope you got to enjoy it and see its beauty so that you can come out. And so that's how we're running our campaign, and that's how I look at politics. We want to get back to the root cases of the issues because those issues, their roots are where we meet. Up in the canopy, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, they're on completely different branches. But down in the roots of a tree and down in the roots of who we all care about the same things. We care about our children. And almost everything that I do comes back to my kids somewhere. So that said, the 5 points that we're really pushing. The first, you're out here doing it and everybody's heard me talk about it, is clean water and air. And for a lot of folks, that's not a dinner table issue. But it actually literally is a dinner table issue. When you sit down at the dinner table and you can't pour a glass of clean water for your kids, or you can't afford your water bill at the end of the month, because infrastructure is failing and because it's costing us more and more to clean our water, because we're allowing people to dump in it, we are hurting ourselves at the dinner table in our pocketbooks. Air, same thing. We have so many folks in our district that suffer from disorders and diseases that other people don't have at the rates and the levels that we have. And that happens because we have 2 of the most polluted zip codes in Virginia. 2 out of the top 10 are right here in the 66. They're Colonial Heights and Northern Chesterfield, where we can almost directly see which power plants are doing that to us and which plants. We just have to look in the sky on any given day and see the smoke billowing out to find out why our kids have alarmingly high rates of asthma. This is another reason. Our public places are important. They are, as Teddy Roosevelt said, our most democratic idea. And the reason that is because we get so much from them, but we can't afford to own them. I don't know anybody in my circle that can afford a mountain. I don't know anybody in my circle that can afford to own a river. But we all do, with about 1/17 of a cent per dollar in our taxes. We own over 5 billion acres of mountains, rivers, lakes, and streams, and that's not even counting our local and state parks. It is super important to me to protect those. They also employ a wide range of individuals that are incredibly passionate about their jobs. We saw 2 of our volunteers here at Pocahontas, which I know the National Park Service lives on volunteers. I'm certain our state parks do too. But those employees too, the individual who's the volunteer coordinator said, call me. She's on leave. She said, you have any problems, you need anything, call me. So I have been on the phone with her all week while she's on leave to make this happen, to plant trees today. Because that's the individuals we're employing, and that's the individuals we're employing in medical, who our Medicaid expansion provides 30,000 jobs for in this state, and our legislator has refused to allow. The 400,000 people that aren't covered that are falling into the gap are one issue. The 30,000 nurses, doctors, nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, and medical billing professionals that would find jobs that are service-oriented and important are another issue. And so that's clean water and air. I come from a place where fracking has become an issue. I don't want to see that happen here. I want to protect us from coal ash in the James. I want to make sure our Chesapeake Bay area continues to not only be a great place to recreate, but an economic center for those of us who farm shellfish and are able to sell and make a living off of that. Our next major issue is the economy and jobs. I believe that the environment goes hand in hand with economy and jobs. So, but I'm going to address a couple niche issues in there. The first is gap training. For individuals who have been displaced by automation or by a new industry, we don't need to lie to them. We don't need to try to preserve old industries. It's not sustainable, and it's not economically smart. What we need to do is make sure we're taking care of those individuals, though. So providing them a short gap training to get them to where they need to be to perform in a new environment. There is something called sympathetic automation training. It's been working great in Iowa and Indiana. I am from the industrial capital of the world. I know how this works. I swear it works. Where we allow people to go to school for 6 months to a year to not do these jobs that they don't want to do, but to do their old job with new techniques and new ways that are economically sustainable, environmentally sustainable, and make us competitive in the world marketplace. And so I'd like to see Virginia start providing that, as well as 2 years at a community college for skilled tradesmen that do qualify. And additionally, we'd like to work on building those alternate energy sources. And this is an economy and jobs and not in the environment, because I don't want to get rid of coal. I don't want to get rid of natural gas. I want it to be where it's at. I don't want to expand it because it's not realistically in a global market. But new energy sources providing growth, innovation, and competition in those fields not only provides way more jobs than fossil does. It's about 5 to 1 when it comes to solar. But we also have tidal availability here, wind availability here, and all those things are huge on the global market They provide for a cleaner environment, but they also provide for lower electric bills for the average consumer. Because when you introduce competition in a marketplace, your bill goes down. I agree with Republicans on that. I like competition. What we're doing right now, when we say it's in the name of business, is stifling competition by protecting people who have been around for a long time. And we need to stop giving them a lot of tax breaks and a lot of incentives to keep doing the same thing they've been doing for years that isn't working. And we need to start encouraging the new businesses and new companies to come out and help us out. And so, and lastly, under is infrastructure and transportation building. I want to see broadband access come to our rural areas. It's so important if you want to start up a business somewhere out there. It's so important if you want to homeschool your kids. It's so important if you have a kid in public schools. I don't know how my daughter would have gotten through the last 12 years without internet connectivity. We need to start bringing affordable broadband and reliable broadband and that also, when we provide the infrastructure, brings in businesses. Businesses don't want to work somewhere they have to build the entire infrastructure. They're not going to build for us if they have to add something to the environment that already exists. They're going to build in Richmond, they're going to build in Glen Allen, where those things already are. If we want to bring them down into the 66, we have to meet them where they're at. We have to give them the things that help them do business. And that means broadband access, that means reliable transportation. About a quarter of our residents in this district do not have personal transportation. That means trains, buses, anything that we can get going. We have existing train lines that have been dead, that all they need is a company, and there are tons of companies out there that are willing to bid. My uncle actually did the program to make Tidewater connected, and that entire Tidewater area through Norfolk is now connected by train, and we can do that. Those companies come out and they bid, and they are willing to build. And if we actually have an environment where they don't even have to build new lines, we can do that. We can bring passenger trains that connect us to the metro areas in the Tidewater area. And that cuts down on those of us who do have personal vehicles having to wait in traffic on our way to Richmond or Norfolk. Our third point, a major point, is education. I am a parent, so it is personal, but we also look at what it does for our community. Our communities are so important, and if we want to bring people in to our communities, we have to give them a reason to want to live here. And good schools are a #1 reason for growing in young families to come to an area. I know it's why I live in Colonial Heights. It's certainly, when I moved here, wasn't what I was told about the social atmosphere in Colonial Heights. I moved to Colonial Heights because I heard the schools were excellent. And they are. But they're slowly, they've been going downhill in the last 5 years. Programs are getting cut. And when we look at things like our state legislator trying to take away public school funding to pay for voucher programs, we're looking at public education that isn't accessible to the public. Those programs can deny children access. They can decide a child who has a disability doesn't need to be in their program because it brings their numbers down, and they're unaccountable. Nobody puts a standard on them like we do on our public schools. There are some wonderful charter school programs out there. I am not opposed to them. I am opposed to my tax dollars paying for them. We need to make sure that we are fully funding K-12, pre-K, as well for low-income families. We see an achievement gap that is huge between kids who have gone to educational pre-K and those who have not. That actually cost us more money in the long run because about 5 times more of them are held back in kindergarten if they didn't do 1 year of pre-K. Those Head Start programs are imperative. And we also need to make sure that we're helping working parents provide educational after-school care. I was so lucky to be in the military because I had an educational preschool program that was based on my income, and it was actually based on my income. I could afford it. And I had an after-school program that was actually free, that my daughter could go to and loved it. She absolutely adored it. where she got to learn and play while I had to stay at work. Those kind of things that we're not providing for our kids right now, we need to. And the good things that we are doing, we need to make sure they stay in place. They are threatened every year in our state legislature. There were 6 education bills this year. All of them tried to take tax dollars away from our schools. We got to make sure it's equitably applied to. We got to make sure that just because we're in a rural area or just because we're in an urban area, we're not getting less money. Because our kids didn't choose to be raised there, and our kids' ability isn't limited by where they live. Our 4th item is veterans care. Everybody loves this, especially if they're wearing red. If they've got a red tie on, they love to tell you that they're gonna take care of veterans. I, as a veteran, can tell you, I do not know what every veteran needs. But what none of us need is to be used as a prop when you don't want to take care of somebody else. If I have to hear one more time that we can't take care of somebody because there's homeless vets, but nobody wants to take care of homeless vets either, I will vomit. It is frustrating to no end to me. I love my brothers and sisters in arms, even the ones I vastly disagree with, which there are plenty. Being a liberal in the military, not that common, but they have served. They put their time and their energy into something bigger than themselves. And the biggest reason that they're having trouble is because they step outside of that box, and it's hard to find your purpose every day. After you have woken up every day and know exactly what you do and why you do it, the first time you wake up and you're putting signs out at Sears or waiting tables at Denny's, 2 things I did after I got out, it's hard to remember what your purpose is. Veterans serve because they love service. They stuck with it. Some of us got in for whatever reason. I got in to get out. I wanted to get out of my hometown. It was the only way I could afford to do it. But within 2 weeks, I knew I'd found my home. There was purpose, there was place, I loved my job. And that transition training is so key. Making sure that our veterans find a place in our communities where they can continue to serve, where they can continue to find purpose. This year, the federal government forgot the line item for troops to teachers. It's a program that helps our troops, our veterans find a new way to serve as teachers. And my favorite educators are veterans. It might be because I know the way they speak and it's easy for me, but they do make wonderful servants. It's what they do. They know how to do it. And we need to help them do that. If they've spent 10 years as a combat medic, they shouldn't have to come out and go through paramedic school. 2-week bridge course, sure. But as a combat lifesaver, as 10 years teaching first aid, self-aid, buddy care, and CPR to medical professionals in the military is one of my additional duties. I had to come out and sit through the full EMTB course to be EMTB certified. I could have taught it. It's a hard thing to go through that because it not only takes up your time and your money, which you often don't have fresh out of the military, but it makes you feel like your experiences and your service weren't valued. We need to help create bridge programs that find our veterans a place in our communities and that continue to promote who they are and what they do and what they want to serve. In Virginia, we can afford to do that beyond what the VA is doing, and we need to be able to do it because we have more veterans than any other state. And also, with that stated, the other good thing is that the VA right now is under a lot of pressure and they might not be doing the best management-wise, but the VA is a federal program. And I can tell you that the VA, as I know it, the medical professionals are the most dedicated and wonderful people I've ever met. I've had a couple I didn't love, but when I go in there, they want to take care of me. And they make sure that I know that. Even if I had to wait 6 months to see them, they will spend 2 hours with me to make sure that I am good. I go and I speak to a social worker every year because it's required. So many of our vets aren't getting that care though because they can't. Some of them have to travel 2 hours 3 hours to get to a VA center. Being able to set up satellite clinics so that our veterans can go in and talk to somebody for needed care, urgent care for vets, basically. That they can go in and especially social workers and psychiatrists that understand the needs of veterans and why it's different for us. The best of us comes out broken. A little bit. The difference between whether broken leaves us on the streets and helps us add to those numbers of unemployment and homelessness that are greater than the rest of society as a whole, or broken leaves us pushing up, jumping to serve, and being an active member of our community, is this. It's our support structure. It's my family, it's my 6 brothers and sisters, my parents, my children. Without that, transition would have been horrible for me. Being able to call the people that I trusted and being able to find a new way to serve are what made my transition possible. And we need to make sure we're providing that for all of our veterans. They've served us, and we need to serve them. And lastly is law enforcement and criminal justice reform. Again, from a criminal justice perspective, it's a little different. I believe in training for our law enforcement officers because I believe that they want to do a great job, and some of them are not getting the training they need to do the best job possible. And that's not their fault. We need to make sure we're training them in de-escalation and crisis intervention. Our officers need to learn their best tools are in their head, they're their brain and their mouth. And it's always the first one that I tried to use. Now, don't get me wrong, there were certain situations that I rolled up on that the hand was on the gun. But this is where I started. And if you have the tools to do it and you know how to do it, you can. 99.9% of the time, fix the problem without going to anything on the belt. Unfortunately, our officers aren't receiving that training, and those who are, it's inadequately applied across the state. We have no state standard for law enforcement, not even ours. I trained in a state that did have a state standard. We were still 900 hours lower than the state standard for a barber. Which, I don't want my hair messed up either, but I think law enforcement needs to come up, and we need to help promote that as a state. These are folks that are out serving their community, their state, and we can afford as taxpayers to make sure that they have the tools they need to do that safely for them and for our communities. And I also fully support community policing initiatives, which have received serious funding cutbacks in the last 10 years. Community policing is the idea that you should be in your community for a reason other than to arrest people. When people see me as a ranger, that flat hat right there, first off, makes most people think you're not a cop, which helps. But secondly, it made people smile when they saw me. It was the best kind of law enforcement in the world. When I walked to a door with a Petersburg PD guy or a Hopewell Police Department officer or a Dinwiddie County Sheriff, you'd see me walk up, the individual smile, then them coming up the sidewalk behind me and the individual go. That's because of public perception that is based on the fact that we only see cops when things are about to go bad. If we're out in our communities, if we're out doing the things that we need to do, if we're out with education programs, if we're out planting trees with kids, if we're out teaching kids about what we do, it improves our communities immensely, and it makes our officers' job so much easier because those communities will come to you and trust you and say, hey, so-and-so was doing this last night. They're not going to say that if they don't like you. But unfortunately, officers can't afford to do that if all they're ever doing is putting out fires. We need to make sure that we're fully funding community policing initiatives. They have been shown to work. The statistics, the facts, the numbers are out there. And I'm told that people don't like those things, so I'm not going to give them to you. But the truth is, y'all are out here. You're educated enough that you care enough to be here. So I'm going to not give them to you because I don't want to bore you, and because we have little ones that I'm sure don't care about the statistics on. But please, feel free. Look up crisis intervention training through the Memphis State Police Department. Amazing program what they designed. Got to teach it for 6 years. One of my favorite things about being a cop was teaching people how to deal with an individual who's emotionally disturbed and not have it end in an arrest or a shooting. And how much that program has diminished the negative results of those interactions is amazing. But unfortunately, it is not mandated in this state. It is not even available in most of this state. Chesterfield just did it. Yes, they got, I think they're at 100% on their officers now, which took a while, and it took a bad incident, unfortunately. It took a 14-year-old girl getting shot for that to happen. And we don't need that to be what drives us. We need to be proactive and not reactive across the board, politically and socially. And guys are being proactive and being out here and helping me build roots. This is the start. This is where we're at. And this entire campaign, and once I get into the legislature, I can promise you will be about those roots. Because no matter how hard I try, I cannot get away from them. Planning this event this morning, trying my darndest to get 40 things going in my head, knowing I was all over the place, knowing I was gonna get dirty and sweat. There's still a crease in my pants and my boots are still shined because I'm stuck in my roots, and I always will be. Whether it's my dad as a union man, my brothers as carpenters and standing on roofs with them, or the military and what it's taught me, or law enforcement and what it's taught me, or the fact that I'm out here reading today to kids and talking to kids and putting spells out to keep the dragons out. Those are my roots as well. I am a mother and I am 100% Irish Catholic. I've never known a world where babies are not running around. And I welcome you to join us at any point.